You guys at Fold, you're going to be going public. Is this kind of part of a larger plan? I mean, you guys, I believe, bill yourselves as like a financial services company. So I'm just curious how you see Fold evolving now. I mean, is it the transition to basically being a full service provider of, you do a lot of services already. Now you're adding the credit card. Like, what does that start to look like as Fold goes public and then Fold continues to grow?
So, really where Fold is in evolution is really kind of just, it started with an idea that just continued to build and build and build based on what Bitcoin did and what people have wanted from us. We started from rewards, and our immediate idea was the real problem is not that people can't spend Bitcoin. The people is that people don't have enough money for savings at all. The idea of saving in Bitcoin versus dollars is not the right question. It's people don't have money to save. And so Fold was started with the idea of how can we create a passive flow of Bitcoin into someone's portfolio and do that without them actually changing any behaviors, just doing what they do normally. And so this is why we really focused on rewards. This was our foothold to expand the idea of savings in general to more people. And Bitcoin is the tool that we actually are able to fill it with. And so we started there, that went, and that, really took off from our rewards network. We have incredible partners. We have a debit card that we actually was the first Bitcoin rewards card ever launched. And for us, we saw what our customers were doing. Not only were they earning so much rewards and value in their Bitcoin, they were actually saying, this makes sense not only as a reward, I want to save my money in Bitcoin now. So they asked us to build out our Bitcoin custody and Bitcoin paycheck conversion, a way for them to buy Bitcoin that sits right next to their savings account. And those customers who did that, their savings is outpacing their peers by 60+%. So now they're saying the rewards are great, the savings are incredible, but now I have all this Bitcoin that represents 50+% of my net worth, and I can't do anything with it. None of the traditional financial institutions actually allow me to leverage it like I would my fiat. And so for Fold, what we try to do is stay very close to what our customers' present situation is. And they happen to be wealthier, growing wealthier and more savings than their peers. And they aren't met by anyone in the market with a way to actually fulfill their daily needs, their monthly bill payments, their credit worthiness, access to loans. And so Fold is really always just following our customers because these customers represent what I believe is the future. People who have chosen to save in Bitcoin as a means of preserving their wealth, as a means of preserving their children's future. And this idea is becoming more and more understood in the mainstream. We now have nation states thinking this way. And so Fold has been, really following what problems do those people have? Why are they some of the wealthiest people but they have problems getting a house? Something is wrong here. And what we see, and these are problems that I've lived personally on the team. I think you guys are living this personally in many ways. So staying true to that has brought us to a reality where Fold is a financial services company that puts Bitcoin at the center to give our customers an advantage in life. And it's not accumulate Bitcoin for Bitcoin's sake. It's what does Bitcoin then enable you to do? And for our customers, they want to live better lives. They want to spend more time with their family. They want to open up more opportunities for themselves. They want to expand their business. And Bitcoin is the best way to do this. And so all of our products that we've built has been in service of that. How can we lead and accelerate prosperity in the lives of our customers? And so what I think you're going to see is Fold really represents what a bank will look like, or a banking platform will look like in 10, 15 years. We've pulled that timeline way up. We have SAB 121 was just overturned, which essentially allows banks to custody and hold Bitcoin. Now, just because they can legally doesn't mean they will, or doesn't mean they have a strategy. And most importantly, doesn't mean they actually can operationally execute it. And I think a lot of them are going to see what Fold is ultimately going to do is show the way of what a banking institution looks like. And it's not just magically changed because of Bitcoin. It's actually Bitcoin fundamentally changes the value exchange between customers and the bank, the financial institution. The more value our customers have in rewards, the better for us. The more they will need a loan on that reward, the more they can buy a larger home or the more that their family will be able to be in a better spot that makes sure they're customers for longer. Now, compare that to any other reward program. Their main goal is to make sure your rewards are constantly cut to zero in any way possible. Then you think of savings accounts in Bitcoin. Our customers, just by holding Bitcoin, are outpacing their peers. And so for us, we want to accelerate that. So for us, we want to open up ways in which that savings that they've accrued is useful. We don't necessarily need to have everyone earning a 5% in treasuries when Bitcoin is around, right? We're opening up optionality for our customers, even if Fold is not getting the benefit of a treasury yield on top of it. Our customers are just getting wealthy 60% faster than using a treasury. That's where Fold wins. And you can really go down the line of the traditional financial stack. And the crazy thing is not just how it makes the lives of those that are accumulating Bitcoin better, but how it makes the business models of financial companies better, where we are both aligned and incentivized in mutually beneficial outcomes. It's not zero-sum games. It's not, I'm a lender, you're a borrower, and we are always in contention. There are ways actually that bring alignment that will truly be the big changes that we see in terms of how we interact with our money, not just holding it, but how the world reorients around this new relationship.
I'm really glad you brought up the repeal of SAB 121, because that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, a lot of the things that you're starting to offer as a financial services company, it really does start to look like a bank. And I think we Bitcoiners, we have when we say the word bank, sometimes we get a bad taste in our mouth, because we've been so jaded by the fiat banking system. But it's, banks serve a useful function. It's just that they've really been completely, kind of had that usefulness mostly destroyed and turned into very crooked institutions. And so I'm curious, I think one of the things that Bitcoiners are very excited about in general is securing, lines of credit or securing loans based on Bitcoin holdings that they have. You seem to be kind of hinting at that a little bit earlier. Is that something that you guys are looking at in terms of kind of one of the parts of the next evolution of your offerings?
Yeah, we see the credit card that we've announced and as really the first kind of step in our strategy in this direction. What do we know? We know that about 60% of our users believe they need to access a line of credit or loan on their Bitcoin in the next 12 months to fulfill basic life needs, right? So this is a very present need for our customers, which means it's a present need for us to help fulfill. And so the credit card really represents the first step. And what does that mean? It's an unsecured line of credit. You don't even have to put your Bitcoin up as collateral and risk liquidation and all the stress of margin calls and high interest rates and for putting up your Bitcoin. And we're offering a very simple unsecured credit product. So that's alone is going to open up access to credit and value for our customers in ways that don't always exist for them. The second thing is we start to look at, well, how can we use Bitcoin as a way to have a larger understanding of credit worthiness? Today, we have credit scores that are out there that are essentially there to chop up, who is eligible for money and who is not. And it's essentially a caste system in many ways that not only the only way to get your credit score up is to take on more debt, but if you mess up at all, your ability as an economic actor in society plummets. Your ability to draw credit is one of the most important things an economic individual has at their disposal. And we believe Bitcoin can open up this very archaic concept of a credit score to create not only a better signal for creditworthiness. I can see this person has accumulated this much Bitcoin that we can engage in a multi-sig arrangement that allows us to protect and enforce that creditworthiness. So I think there's an interesting thing there. There's also an interesting thing of how does Bitcoin allow us to redefine lenders and borrowers in their relationship? And so I kind of look at this as V1 of loans, which we've seen from, you name it. Some don't exist anymore, and some are still around. But you put up Bitcoin as collateral, you're getting some kind of loan to value that's pretty restrictive, or if it's too generous, it can get you in a little bit of trouble. But then you have margin call risk, liquidation risk. We just had a couple huge swings in Bitcoin to the upside and downside. That's just not a great relationship when you have your Bitcoin locked up in a loan and suddenly you're being liquidated. I don't believe that's a mass market product. I don't also believe that the interest rates you get as a result of locking up your Bitcoin are really high compared to the risk you're taking by putting up your Bitcoin. So I think all of this is kind of V1. If your Bitcoin is able to be liquidated, I think that's V1 loans. And if your interest rates are higher than, what you could get on your fiat, that's a V1 loan. That's kind of first chapter. What Fold is looking at is what's the next chapter for loans? And it is not the typical collateralized loan with margin calls and liquidation risk. We say, well, Bitcoin is a long-term, we have a long-term view on Bitcoin, and so do our customers. So let's create loans that are longer term. Let's create loans that actually, with the long term, allow us to handle short-term volatility so that it doesn't create a scary or anxious product experience and doesn't create a relationship for us where we are incentivized to go and take that from our customers. And by taking a long-term loan, we can have a longer relationship. That means we can draw down interest rates in many ways. And there's also potential of, hey, can we bake in Bitcoin into that loan where the company, the lender, it gets a share of the appreciation of your Bitcoin over time in return for a much lower interest rate. So you go from a down payment of $10,000 a month to a down payment of $3,000 a month. For some people, that makes sense depending on what their cash flow situation is. And so this credit card is really the first shot across the bow of a series of kind of work that we're going to do in this space. But we believe that really getting Bitcoin loans right requires a totally different perspective than what's been taken thus far. And I think you're going to see a proliferation of what I would call kind of first generation Bitcoin lending opportunities come to market. But what Fold is going to look at is really what is the long-term status of a Bitcoin loan that truly changes the dynamic between lenders and borrowers. And that is the product that's really going to win. And I think we have the team to really do that.
And it seems like too, you mentioned just because these SAB 121 has been repealed, just because the banks now technically have the ability to do this, it's not like they can just snap their fingers and make this happen overnight, or are willing, or even want to. They're maybe not willing, and maybe certainly not able yet. They don't have the infrastructure in place. They certainly don't have a ton of Bitcoiners working for them. Maybe that number is growing just as Bitcoin grows. But it's kind of interesting. I kind of have this sense that, okay, even with the changing regulatory environment, it feels like a lot of these big incumbent players are going to be really slow to offer some of these products that we know the market wants. But they were slow to get Bitcoin in the first place, right? Like it took a lot of, it took Larry Fink getting out there and, making some very strong statements for people in the TradFi world to pay attention. But the interesting thing I think about Fold is you guys are trying to play in the same arena, but you're coming from a completely different starting point. You're coming from the position of a Bitcoin company, made of Bitcoiners, by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, basically. And it just seems like you guys have more of an advantage in this because you're also, you're smaller, you can move a little bit quicker, and you actively know what products your customers want because you guys are yourselves customers of your own products. Like you have these struggles, it's like even right now, I think a lot of Bitcoiners are in the position where it's like, at least in America, I can't speak for other countries, but if you want to get a loan and you need to show some assets, it's like, you will not be able to use Bitcoin as to show. Banks won't even look at it. It doesn't matter if you're a Bitcoin millionaire in fiat terms. They'll just say, no, sorry, we don't look at that. So you may have all of this capital, but you actually have no way to kind of be able to utilize that capital to live your life in a lot of ways. Let's be honest, we're not hyper Bitcoinized yet. You can't pay for everything in Bitcoin. It's just the reality. And so I think these products are really important, and it's kind of exciting to see too. Are you guys, how many total customers do you guys have right now, just with the debit card products?
So in our latest filing in the process of going public, we were able to, at foldapp.com/investors, we have kind of overview of the company. So in that, we have over 600,000 Bitcoin accounts, Bitcoin savers. And what that is really a reflection of where we were many months ago. And what we see today is just like we saw in 21 and 2021, where we have a new wave coming in. There's no doubt that more people are looking to save and acquire Bitcoin. Fold's going to be there. And I think to your point earlier about the incumbents, do they have the ability to move into this space? The innovator's dilemma is in full force here. That is not going to be, disproven because these are the banks. In fact, probably going to be even more true in their challenge to do anything about this. And for us, it's really been just pure focus. We've only focused on Bitcoin. It's the only asset that can reasonably provide us to deliver on our essential mission to build the long-term savings and wealth of our customers. There's no other asset, that a digital asset or else, that we feel accomplishes that. And the vision is that Fold has plenty of runway before these incumbents come in any meaningful way, but also the amount of and type of customers that we have coming in, developing the relationship that we had here, being the one that's going to help them get access to their next home, the one that helped them earn enough for a down payment purely out of the rewards they earned on their Bitcoin. For us, we're developing decades-long relationships with our customers. And these customers, because they've chosen to save in Bitcoin, whether they made that decision today or they made that decision 10 years ago, this is the most valuable customer base any financial institution could ever want, because they're not only are they have qualities, typically they're 35 to 55, they're just starting families, they're just building either their own business or coming into larger incomes, have much of their net worth is in Bitcoin. These customers are just going to be requiring premium level financial services that are only going to exist at companies like Fold. And that relationship that we're starting by being a first mover, by being there with them early, I think will be something that the other incumbents can't catch up to. The user base and the relationship and the brand we're creating today is going to put us in a position where our customer base in 10 years from now, their needs are going to, their savings and wealth will be 10, 100x of what it is today. And that provides, as a business, incredible opportunity for us, but also for our customers. We're going to know their needs better than the incumbents will. Like they just aren't they're used to customers whose wealth is debased every year. They're used to customers who are earning rewards who are debased every year. The financial system exists on the idea of debasing your own customer. And in Fold's world, it's the exact opposite. It's how can we build up and how can we accelerate that build for our customers? And I think it's really that basic, different approach, which is going to make it inevitable that we are going to win.
It's such an interesting thing because obviously Bitcoin, the beauty of it, right, is that it does not require trust in a third party. But there are a lot of things as you go about your life where you realize, okay, I do need to trust in a third party for this, whether that be, we talked about loans earlier, securing a loan for a home, something like that. You do need to find a third party that you can supply some extra capital that you can trust or trust a little bit. And I just have to imagine that thinking of myself, also thinking of other Bitcoiners, it's like, who am I going to trust if I want to get a loan against my Bitcoin? Am I going to trust JP Morgan Chase with Jamie Dimon, who has consistently just ragged on Bitcoin? Am I going to trust that guy? Or am I going to trust the company by Bitcoiners and for Bitcoiners? It's like, it's a pretty easy calculus, I think, for Bitcoiners. Like, if you have to do some amount of trust, well, you're going to trust fellow Bitcoiners before you're going to trust some fiat banker. At least that's my read on that.
And that's right now, what do they have? Well, they have JP Morgan, great example, has a record of being around for a long time. They're Lindy, right? So to some extent, they have developed that just built in, people trust them. But as the longer they wait to jump into this space, the more that the Bitcoin brands are going to start to develop not only that same long track record. I mean, the fact that Fold, if you look at Fold when we started 2019, 2020, I would look around and I would see about 6 or 7 very well-funded direct competitors to us. Those competitors, in many ways, were BlockFi, Voyager, FTX, Celsius, a few others that I'm generously leaving off the list don't exist anymore. And why is that? Is because we've taken an approach to risk and to focus that not only put us in a position to survive, but thrive through this process. And we are going to continue to build and earn that trust, build that timeline as a financial services company that will be here and that has been here and that has been tested. And I am very proud of the track record that we have today. I'm proud of the other Bitcoin companies that I'm, close with the other founders who have managed this same journey. And that advantage that the incumbents have about being around longer will start to wane compared to as we build our own reputations, alongside the fact of our focus is to build your wealth, not to debase it. And eventually customers are just going to look at that single fact, that value proposition, and it's going to be abundantly clear about who they're going to align with. And once that happens, that is when JP Morgan Chase decides to have a Bitcoin strategy.
That's when Jamie Dimon all of a sudden switches his tune and says, actually, yeah, okay, Bitcoin's not so bad. Give us your Bitcoin. Come on, bring it on in here. Let us take care of it. Yeah. No, I'm curious too, because, these incumbent players are bigger. Obviously they've been the behemoths, right? The biggest bullies in the schoolyard for decades. But at the same time, you guys are going to be a publicly traded company soon. You're going to have different capital raising, very like fiat capital raising ways that you can go about acquiring more capital. And I know you guys already have a Bitcoin treasury. I think you've got, correct me if I'm wrong, over 1,000 Bitcoin already in that treasury. Is that correct?
Yeah. So today, Fold has 1,000. That puts us out of the top 25 Bitcoin treasury in the world,
which is incredible. And I think this, we've seen this Bitcoin treasury strategy for private companies. Obviously, it works well. For publicly traded companies, there's an additional kind of X factor there. Saylor has proved that very well. You've seen Metaplanet, Semler Scientific, a host of others now that are, kind of smaller names that have sort of jumped on board. A lot of these were, quote, zombie companies, to use, I think, Eric Semler's words himself. You guys are not that. You're coming into the stock market now. You're going to be tradable for people. You're going to be able to raise more capital. I mean, is the goal with that to really be able to kind of use some of those fiat instruments to go with that Saylor playbook to really kind of spin up the capital accumulation? But by capital, I mean, acquire fiat capital and then convert to Bitcoin capital.
Yeah, I mean, short answer is yes. Longer answer is Fold has been a Bitcoin company with the express mission of building the long-term savings and wealth of our customers through Bitcoin. Us not doing that as a company ourselves is not practicing what we preach and would be a very big gap. And so Fold has always believed that having a Bitcoin treasury was important, not only because that is our business to help our customers and to be aligned with our customers, but we also believe it is a path to durability and sustainability for a business. And so long before the Saylor playbook, there was just this idea of Bitcoin companies holding Bitcoin treasuries because it was good for the business and good for your customers. And we are definitely excited about the fact of what Saylor and the kind of others have done by showing what you can do as a public market company. And so Fold really is first and foremost an operating company that builds the wealth of its customers. And as they build their wealth, we build our wealth. As Fold's business lines, throw off cash, we are able to direct those into Bitcoin. So we can accumulate Bitcoin very, very efficiently over the course of our business operations, which is not true of any of the other kind of Bitcoin treasury companies. At the same time, there is a playbook out there, and we certainly intend to follow it. We have seen just absolutely incredible demand for these types of relationships and partnerships. And so I think Fold is going to both be something that's set apart because the business itself generates Bitcoin. At the same time, we are going to be able to take advantage of the tools that have really allowed others to accelerate their Bitcoin treasury strategy. And so Fold, between the combination of those two, I think has a really strong story and a really strong foundation to continue our trajectory. We're 1,000 today, top 25. I think it's a great idea for us to be a top 10. I would love to see that. I would love to see Fold to be a top 5. And because of, again, like you said, of where we come from day one versus entering this from a different, from a kind of an indirect way, I think also gives us certain advantages in this space that will soon be borne out. And, I'm excited very much to continue stacking Bitcoin in our treasury at the same time of helping our customers do the same thing.
You guys are going public. Is it a Spack? Is that what the mechanism is for it?
So it is a Spack. It is run by one of the most successful Spack sponsors out there. Obviously, Spacks have a checkered history, but Betsy Cohen, who is an absolute pioneer and legend in the financial services space, she was pioneered internet banking at all. She pioneered the idea of digital financial services, delivering them online. Fold represents to her, and we've had a great relationship. She's dialed in that she gets Bitcoin. She, unlike Jamie Dimon, unlike those that took a while, she gets it. And it's just from her career of understanding how financial services and money evolves with technology. And so it was a perfect match for us. And, we will be a public company over the next, and very short term. And we're excited to be able to announce that. And, what's important to us, though, is that mission one is to build the wealth of our customers. And if we do that, we will build value for our shareholders through accumulating more Bitcoin into our treasury. If one, then two. And we're very clear that we're not just a company that's slapping Bitcoin on it for a booster. We're a Bitcoin company from our principles and our ethics. And we intend to bring a different approach to Wall Street in a way that reflects this. And things that you think about are, you have the idea of the kind of fiat quarterly earnings hamster wheel. In Bitcoin, we have this idea of a 4-year cycle, and we bring this idea of a low time preference, high time preference. And so for us, it's very new for a company like us to enter public markets. It's going to be turbulent. It's going to be fun. Things are going to take a while for the market to understand who we are, our story, what Bitcoin is, why we're different. But ultimately, I think what we emerge out of that is an incredible story of long-term alignment with our customers who happen to be accumulating wealth faster than anyone else in the world, as because of that, Fold and our customers are the most valuable thing to hit Wall Street in the last decade. And so I think it's going to be a change from principles standpoint, but also from business models. And so this is why I think we're getting a lot of interest in terms of partnership, in terms of, understanding what our roadmap is, how others can be helpful. And I think it's a lot because the story is very different from the ground up. And you can take, hey, it's kind of like a fintech in this way. It's kind of like a Bitcoin equity in this way, kind of like a miner in this way. And we kind of sit in our own lane. And my favorite thing about that is we get to tell our own story. It's going to take a while to tell that story, but we're not here. One good thing about having 100 million or 1,000 Bitcoin in our treasury is that we get to take the time to tell that story right. We don't have to take fiat shortcuts to do things anymore.
I think that's kind of just a beautiful thing. And I'm curious, because the way you talk and the way that you guys operate as a company is obviously very different from the fiat mindset. Like, yes, you're going to be you'll be listed in the stock market. Stock markets are not inherently bad by any means. They've certainly gotten a bad rap because of all the shenanigans, for lack of a better word, that goes on there, because of all of the just insider abuses and things like that. Do you see, like, both from your own perspective, but then as other Bitcoin companies start, not just talking about like a zombie company that's acquiring Bitcoin, but talking about Bitcoin companies like Fold, like others coming up and becoming publicly traded companies. Do you think there starts to be a larger kind of perspective shift in the market where maybe, both people who are looking to purchase equity in that company, but also just companies themselves start to take a little bit of a look inward and say, like there's a new standard? Or is that just me being a little bit of a, naive dreamer Bitcoiner here?
No, going back to the idea of like, there's a fundamental difference in what Bitcoin does, not just because you have the asset in your company, but because you let Bitcoin express itself in the ways that it's bringing new things to the world. You allow Bitcoin to show its alignment between the service provider and the person taking advantage of the service. If you let that breathe, you start to see crazy things start to happen. And what you see on the stock market today is you have the likes of Apple or some of the largest equities, any of the Mag 7s out there, who are flush with cash. And what they need to do, they need every quarter, they need to burn a lot of that cash to give the perspective to their equity holders that growth will come out of that from somewhere. And so what that does is sometimes it works for the best operators, it works just enough to keep them number one. For everyone else, it really represents a terrible misallocation of capital. People are just burning capital in the idea that they can create an aura of growth for their company or take a Hail Mary long shot at something. Now, then on the other side, you have Michael Saylor who said, wait, we're not going to spend money on anything. accept Bitcoin. And we're really not going to have a core business that has a future in many ways, at least as it was, in the original conception of MicroStrategy. But their runway, their capital is expanding rapidly. So instead of, they're able to have their own shareholders say, I'm looking at this company on a 4-decade horizon versus everyone else looking at other equities on a quarterly horizon. And if you're able to bridge that gap, a lot of different things happen. A different long-term alignment with companies start to happen that allows companies to truly invest in things that are major growth opportunities for them because you have the time to do it. It's not like you need to go burn $1 billion of cash and hope something happens in 90 days. And if it doesn't, go figure out the next shiny thing you're going to go burn money on. With Bitcoin and being a center part of a treasury and a business's sustainability lets you think far more in much longer time horizon, which we don't really even know what that's going to allow us to do and accomplish and be productive with. I think we will see the results of that. I think we can speculate on what that means because I think in various times in history, we have had nations or companies that have been able to orient themselves to a much longer time horizon. And that's when we get truly beautiful things built and truly phase shifts happening in business models and outcomes. And we're going to get to see more of that. At the same time, we don't have this horrible misallocation of capital, this ritual cash burning that happens every 90 days. I think there's a lot, it's such a fundamental change that we're going to see where it goes, but it's going to be big.